Thanks a lot, Peter, for introducing both Scrum Ambassadors as well as the entire journey of the Scrum Ambassadors. And I do want people to realize that Scrum Ambassador is a very powerful organization where we are trying to recognize work of you in your certification journey, as well as try to serve a cause that is bigger than what Scrum anticipates to accomplish. So please check us out. Peter will be sharing the Scrum Ambassador link as well as other programs that we have available. I want to confirm, can you all see my screen right now? It says meet the speaker before I move forward. One or two yeses would be great.
I can see it.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Excellent. Just wanted to make sure. Fantastic. Peter, there was a question about in the chat about videos. Maybe you can respond to that particular person.
Sure. The answer is yes, and I don't know. Yes, we do plan to publish them. I don't know when or how, which is why I suggested that you follow us on Scrum Ambassadors, and we'll post that as soon as it's available.
Fantastic.
I've got about 12 hours of video to process and somehow get into a reasonable shape to publish it. So it's probably going to take a week or two before we get it online, but I do want to get it online.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Peter, for that. So let's move forward over here. Again, my name is Sriram Rajagopalan, as Peter was mentioning. My educational background is having a bachelorate in electronics and communication, master's in computer engineering, MBA in management, PhD in organizational leadership, focusing on business and management. In between, I also did my IT applications in United Kingdom as part of biomedical engineering. My doctoral thesis was relating to the relationship between emotional intelligence and different types of leadership styles within an IT project setting, IT project management setting for virtual teams. And since then, I have done a lot of postdoctoral research publications and published my own frameworks, which are TONES framework for middle management transformation, Parag framework for product management, and SLEEP framework for managing leadership, how you manage leadership at different levels. And my work experiences, I started my career as a software engineer several years back, and then moved on to eFunds, which is now known as Fidelity. eFunds was acquired by Fidelity, and I had performed the roles of senior system analyst, business analyst, project manager, and moved on to Lug Mason, where they called it project leader, but it was actually early seeds of Scrum Master. And then moved into the West Notifications, where I did a lot of different initiatives with different industries as a senior project manager. That's when I started going too much into my Agile journey. And then in Aptus Health, which was a life sciences and healthcare medical devices kind of a company, where I did a program management office with 45 to 50 different project managers, program managers, scrum masters reporting under me. I served as a capacity of the director and the vice president of proposition delivery. Now I currently work as the enterprise agile coach with Inflectra Corporation. At this point, we are focused more on creating application lifecycle management and solving people's problems through software delivery. And somewhere around this Lug Mason journey, I started my own company, Agile Training Champions, where I focused on training people both online and on ground for certification preps and specific areas of risk management, Agile, and things like that. And I've been also doing a lot of application lifecycle management training, and I have done training in a number of different places, as you can see in the map. But I'm also very proud of the community service that I do as part of my vocation, like the call for me to exist in the world. So I do a lot of volunteering with different universities, and I'm also an advisory board member with Boston University Agile Innovation Lab and Global Security Devices Council. I teach in Northeastern University, University of Riverside, and a few other universities as well. And I do a lot of speaking engagements, and I have written books about project management and how they apply in common life, like organized common sense, where project management and agile principles apply. I'm particularly very interested about the plot initiative, which is projecting leaders of tomorrow, where I take these concepts of personal agility, project management, and things like that into the high school children, so that they can better manage themselves in their school, as well as when they enter in the college and they enter the employment workforce. Been doing a lot of writing and many other things as part of this work, and that's in a nutshell about me. But we're not here just to learn about me. We are here to learn something more about when Scrum doesn't work, or how do you know Scrum is not working, right? So some of the experience speaks. Most of the things that I'm talking about here are based upon the transformation work that I have done with different industries. So I am anonymizing all the names of people and companies that I have worked for, the consulting engagements, and so no information about those things are presented here. But primarily speaking, all the summary, when you look at this, if waterfall never worked, and we all say that waterfall never worked, and we embraced Agile, we need to also know the practices that led to its failure. Because if these practices continue with how we implement Agile, then Agile will fail too. This is one of my common saying, but I don't think we understand the impact of it enough. So I highlighted this. Do we engage in appreciative inquiry in what are the practices that really led to waterfall's failure? And I wrote a publication several years back that said like waterfall did not even exist. It existed only in the practitioner's mind who implemented it. And without going into too much of the details over there, if we continue with those practices, then we are going to create multiple versions of what we call Agile. And I'm sure we all have heard the term, fragile, Agile fall. And when we talk about Scrum, we say Scrum and Scrum but. And many other things are coming up primarily because we don't understand what these things are trying to say, what these frameworks are even trying to say. But we move forward at a rapid pace, thinking like, this is what I thought you said, this is what I thought this book said or framework suggested, and we move forward, and then we start telling like, hey, things don't work. So Agile failed, and it alone, Scrum also failed. And here are some of my thought process here in terms of why certain things happen. So first of all, we all know that we need to have executive vision. We need to make sure that the executives are committing and we have a product vision for this. And without that, nothing moves forward. And then we have the fragility of the team, how mature the team is in understanding and adapting to Agile. And then trying to have process information. I want to make sure that I'm following this 80-page business requirements document, but I can put this in a user story. So my user story is going to read, please click here for more information. I click there and I have a 50-page document, right? Technical myopia. We don't actually include information about technical related stories right in advance because, oh, product manager is not technical and we're not going to worry about anything technology related. It's only specific to business process and business stories, and we don't care about how you implement. So all kinds of challenges keep coming up. And these are some of the specific things that I heard, and which are funny moments, but true moments. Some people have come and said, oh, we moved to sprint because we found out that iterations are too long, so we use sprints. That's the reason behind why they are not using Agile, but they are moving to Scrum. Well, neither understand properly iteration nor understand sprint. So if you're not understanding Agile, you're not going to understand sprint or Scrum. We do daily stand-up. So we should be adapting Scrum clearly. But we find out that the sprints are not delivering any value. Just because you adopt daily stand-up doesn't mean that you are adopting Scrum. In every SDLC, the software development life cycles where you have requirements, analysis, design, development, testing, deployment, each and every one of them is done in one sprint. So at the end of the third sprint, which when then design is done, what does the customer get? Nothing. At the end of development sprint, what do you get? Nothing. What do you get in the end of testing sprint? Nothing. Are we really delivering value to the customer sooner for frequent feedback? Absolutely nothing. But this is another one. Another best thing is working software is measured by the number of Jira tickets that are closed. And I don't mean anything to Jira over here because that's the terminology that people use. I'm using Jira here. So working software is measured by number of closed Jira tickets, not by how customers are benefiting from the program increments that you are giving, product increments you are delivering, or not by how the business is better because you are doing this. None of those things matter, but tickets. And we choose the wrong technology, so we can use Scrum. Doesn't make sense at all, right? Whether it is a tool that you are using for managing your Scrum process or the technology that needs to be used in your product, those are not having any dependency on whether to use or not use Scrum. Right? It's a framework, it's a methodology mindset, but you are not able to understand this. When you don't understand these things clearly, on the one hand, people say, oh, Agile never works. But on the other end, everybody wants to see the good side of the story and they say, well, everything is Agile for me. This is not right. So I started looking at some of the failure patterns. Everything is based upon, again, what I have come into contact with in terms of some of the work that I have done. So I basically came down with task-oriented and overburdened team. They just focused on task, and they're not focusing on what is the ultimate goal at the end of the sprint. What am I delivering to the customer? How is the business better off because we are doing this? Nothing there. The next one is failure to build consensus. Peter referred to that working agreement. There is no working agreement. We just do whatever, so continuously doing work, occupying ourselves with non-value added activities, right? Neglect of technical excellence. It needs to be part of the actual work that you are trying to do. So in the other sessions that we have talked as part of the Scrum Ambassadors for Beginners program, we talked about the why we are doing, and then what we are doing, and then how we are doing the why, what, and how. All these things have to be done as part of the same iteration or sprint. But if we forget the technical aspects of how we are going to do as part of your acceptance story and things like that, you're neglecting some of the technical aspects of it, right? And then you're practicing without any principles. You don't understand any Scrum artifacts correctly. You don't understand any of the Scrum events correctly. You just try to move forward as though you're a zombie, right? These are at the very peripheral level. But if you look at the nucleus level, if you go one step down, you get a lot more additional information. Inconsistent or siloed adoption. Some teams adopt Scrum and not the entire organization adopts it. And some people have not even heard the word Scrum. They can't even pronounce it. They can't even spell it, right? And then weak product strategy. The product owner is not having the business vision, the product vision as to how I'm going to create a product that will be used by the consumers. Instead, I don't know what I'm doing, but I've been put in this charge, so I'm going to do certain things and help me out, yes. There's no product strategy at all in the first place to begin with. Cultural conditioning. We have heard about this repeatedly. Peter Drucker, famous management guru, says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Whatever strategy you have, if you are not truly understanding how the culture is going to be ingrained in the company or in the organization, you're not going to move forward at all. And finally, executive commitment. They don't exist. They simply don't exist. As a result, the culture is not there. As a result, product strategy is not there. As a result, not everyone adopts them. And that manifests itself in the team in many different phases. These are the 4 important zones of challenges that I noticed. On the one hand, we first of all don't know what is the problem we are even solving. We use Scrum, but what problem are we solving? What product are you developing? Why are you developing this product? What is the business need and what's the business impact of non-delivery or non-conforming? No information. All right. The next one is going to be organization and planning, that kind of phase. how we are organizing ourselves to make sure that we are delivering value. Not only deliver, but also sustain. The third one is at the team level. The team does not have proper working agreements. They don't have any kind of commitment to make sure that things are getting done so that there is a proper alignment to what the product wants and what the business wants, and ultimately what the customer wants. And they actually rely on inconsistent, incorrect processes. And we have talked about some of the ways where waste can be created in other sessions also. So how do we ensure that we are continuously learning as a result of whatever we are doing? These are the four major areas, four zones that I started focusing on as part of my work. But there is much more important problem. None of these things matter if you don't understand this. And that is, who is our customer? If we don't know who our customer is and why we are solving the problem for this particular customer, we don't know what we are even trying to solve. It goes back to the traditional diagram that many of you can relate, where we say, the product was system development lifecycle failure. The product wanted this, the customer wanted this, and the product designed this, and we create all kinds of problems, and the customer is completely lost with the information that you deliver that is neither fit for his purpose or her purpose, or conforming to the requirements that he or she wanted. So the most important question for us to understand is, who is our customer to begin with in our work, right? So I want to ask you first, in your project that you are doing, when you ask yourself this question, who is the customer? What do you think comes across as the customer? Who do you think is the customer? Anybody wants to take a shot at what one of their projects and tell me who their customer is?
I do have a question.
Sure.
So I'm just going with current work now.
Okay.
So we work in a support call center. So our product is for many, many people. And so we view them as our customer from the development team, right? The development team views the customer as, sorry, let me start this again.
Okay.
Our work coming from the product owner, who we assume that is where the decisions come from. Do they come from product owner, or do they come from customer to product owner, and then do they make the final decision on what happens to the product?
All those are good questions. But in order for me to answer that question, let me even ask you, who is the customer in that particular product? Because we are already putting product owner, developers, and many other people over here. But who is the customer? In your product, who is the customer?
Medical practitioners.
And okay, great. Medical practitioners. Are medical practitioners part of your product team? No,
they're using our software.
They're using our software. So when you look at this, the end user who benefits from the product increments that you are pushing at the end of every release or every iteration or sprint is the one who is benefiting from that. Those are the medical professionals who are benefiting from the work that we push it down, correct?
Yes, obviously, yes.
Fantastic. And that is the customer.
So, okay.
That is the customer. Peter, you raised your hand?
Okay. One of the things which it sounded to me like you were getting to, I wrote about this in my book on contracting, on 10 contracts. Sometimes we have the client and we have the customer. So like if you're working for a service company and you're doing, contract programming or development for maybe your call center is providing the service to another organization. You've got a client who kind of pays for your services and usually keeps the decision-making authority about what the product is and what's not, and is it okay, or is it not okay? And then, but you're building something which is going to be used by a much broader number of people. So what is your client going to do? Are they going to sell it? Are they going to use it? So your client. So I kind of say, you develop something for a client. Okay, when you've got that contract relationship, whether it's explicit or implicit, kind of irrelevant. But you have a client, but you sell to customers. Okay, so the customers don't care about how you build it. They just look at it and say, does it meet my need? If the answer is yes, they buy it. If for some reason they don't like it, they don't buy it, or they go to someone else. Okay, so for me, the kind of the who is the customer, that's really who is the beneficial end user, or what is the ultimate source of the money. And so if you're working in a service company, that's a little bit tricky, because you got to keep your client happy, but they're not really the ultimate source of the money. You're probably doing it for someone else. And how do you get that line of sight all the way to that someone else? That can be a bit tricky.
Sorry, that was where I was going, because we've got within our organization, we have a customer support manager who is delegating to product owner what is more important. And so I'm just asking, so is that the correct process to follow, that we do what the support team lead is telling us to do? Or do we do, I think you know what I'm trying to say, I just can't get my words in order.
So, yes, let me give you an example over here. Who is the customer? So what Peter was telling, I completely relate with, because as part of the program management office that I had, a lot of contracting, the pharmaceutical companies contract with us for us to develop materials for them. So let's say they have a drug that is coming out, and this drug has to be indicated for a new information, or new population can use this drug, and this information has to be communicated to the doctors and the healthcare providers. The healthcare providers are having limited amount of time, and so when you give them this big 30-page document, they don't have time for reviewing this. So we review this document for the pharmaceutical client, and we pick out specific information that needs to be highlighted in a in a video format, or in an engaging interactive format, or a newsletter, or any other format. We basically come down like, okay, these are all the different formats in which we can communicate this information, and we can target these group of people for these kind of information: people that have a lot of time, people that have limited time, people that are busy, people that are in a metropolitan city, and things like that. Based upon that, we come down with different type of channels through which we communicate more and more of the same information. So who is our client? Our client is basically the pharmaceutical company, because they are the one who gives us the money for us to develop the work for them. But are they the full beneficiary of them? Yes and no, because they are going to be the one that's paying for it. But are they the beneficiary? No, the actual doctors are the one that are going to benefit from this. So the end users are the customers, but the client is an intermediary who is between us as the product developers and the delivery of value providers and the actual end consumers. So we have to go through the whole process. So sometimes in your process, in the product you are developing, you may be working through a client engagement for your end consumers, because you don't reach the end consumers. So this client acts as an intermediary. So if we have a question about, well, which kind of doctors are we targeting and why, they will come and tell us, oh, don't worry about targeting this specialist because they don't write this drug. Who knows this information? Because they act as an intermediary voice of customers for us. And so they are providing this information. On the other hand, we also have developed our own products where the actual doctors use a mobile app to get more information about the latest news that's happening around the world on their specialty of interest. And that app is developed by us, paid for by us, and the doctors are subscribing to our product. In that particular case, the end consumers are the doctors, and there is no client. So the actual thing is, follow the green, but not only follow the green, but also follow the actual person who will use it. Are you able to relate to that?
I got what you're saying. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. And this is very important because you want to think from the customer's angle. Immediately, we don't want to come as a persona. So we start writing user stories in a rush. But we need to understand who is our customer, because at the end of the day, we have to develop everything for the customer, right? And that's very important. Now, if you don't understand that, We talked about the essence of Scrum. Peter highlighted the flower diagram over here in terms of how this is getting done, right? None of the thing over here that we are talking about, inspect, provide something of value in a specific cadence, or we want the problem. We actually deliver something of tangible results. We deliver them sooner for feedback, and we align ourselves, and we provide leadership. All these things are really relevant only if we understand who our customers are. Otherwise, we are delivering something that are not necessarily adding value, right? And so this is very important for us to understand before we focus on these things. None of these things really matter if we miss that one particular problem, on one particular question. The next one is going to be the strategy. Now here we are trying to analyze the problem. Like I mentioned, you really want to understand two critical things. What is the need? Sometimes the clients do not necessarily, or clients or customers do not necessarily articulate the need clearly. How many users really went to Steve Jobs and said, this is exactly how I wanted my next generation of phones to look like? I don't think anyone went and told that, but once they have the phone in their hand and they can interface with this and see all the wonderful things that it can do, well, now they will have all kinds of other things, right? But sometimes you need to understand the customer's need, which may or may not be articulated by the customers themselves. And then what's the business impact? If you don't deliver this, what is going to happen? Are you going to lose customers? Are you going to lose market share? Is the company going to die? We need to truly understand what is the business impact. This helps you to properly prioritize and plan for your risks, right? And so when these are not going to happen, some patterns evolve. First thing is no dedicated product owner. When there is no dedicated product owner, the product vision is not aligned. Somebody needs to have this dialogue with the clients and be acting as the voice of customer. As product owner is the voice of customer, right? You need to gather this information. Otherwise, the product vision is not even there. And if it is there, it is not aligned with the business strategy. And then they don't have any accountability for collecting proper users' feedback on a frequent basis. Now, I gathered this information, provided this, how is this? What other additional features you have? And sometimes people may be articulate. They will be able to look at this and say, oh, you have this user interface designed this way. This looks good, that looks bad. They will be able to tell that. Sometimes you have to have exploratory testing. Play with them, see how they are reacting, and observe the nonverbal communication. You need to have different means of collecting that feedback. And that's going to come only when you are having a dedicated product owner who's able to experiment with these things. The next one is product marketing. And this is particularly the case with IT-related products alone. A lot of time people deliver the products and keep pushing it, but at the end of the day, somebody has to market this product too. What is the few functionalities? What is the release documentation? How is this helpful for newer product market, new market segments? How are you actually constantly providing feedback about your product to others, right? The next one is going to be a pattern is one full-time equivalent and many roles. In other words, one person and many roles. The same person does many roles. And typically what happens is the role clash when this happens. Like I'm the Scrum Master and I'm also the product owner. When these things happen, there is a motivational and cognitive bias. Some are inadvertently happening, some are motivationally happening. I am responsible for both. I'm going to do part of this and part of that. So there is a bias that is getting introduced. Which one I should focus on? The second, as a result of that bandwidth problem, what they are trying to do is they don't engage the proper stakeholders at the right moment in time. They're not available for refinement. They're not available for proper reviews. And so you create futures that you think are really important, and you go into the self-fulfilling prophecy that whatever you are doing is right. And you neither have time for the team in that case, nor for the customer. Well, if you're not delivering value for the customer, or you're not supporting the team, in what way are you really supporting Scrum? Right? And these impacts Scrum in different way, because you are setting it for failure with either gaps existing between the sprints. I have literally seen these things happen. So people will deliver one sprint and they don't start the next sprint 3, 4, 5 weeks after. And I asked them, like, why did you have a break in between the sprint and that sprint? Well, we didn't have the backlog ready. The product owner wasn't available. And so we don't know what to do. So we just waited. Because the product owner is not available to define the backlog and look for information and things like that. And there may be product where you are at the very early starting phases of the product, and this is maybe potentially possible, but you still have to have the cadence, because if you're having gaps in between sprints, forget about the cadence, getting feedback sooner, nothing is happening, right? Then extend the sprint length for delivery. This particular sprint, we accumulated a lot of stuff. And so this sprint is going to be 3 weeks. Why did you choose to move from 2 weeks to 3 weeks? We had more stuff over here and we could not finish it by the end of 2 weeks. So we extended it for 3 weeks. Well, then you are actually not following Scrum. The time boxing principle is not being honored. What's the purpose behind time boxing? You fix the time box so that you can control the scope within that. Instead, you are extending this. This is not like an arbitrary, caliper where you can keep extending the end, right? The third one is moving items across the sprints. Oh, I can get the feedback. I'm halfway done, but I can't get the feedback. So I'm going to push it to the next sprint and the next sprint. And there are certain things where some work half cooked was done, but nothing is done because it's not clearly moved to the end game. And so it's still waiting there. And when it is really ready for pickup, we lost the context. What did we do? Why did we do this? What decisions were made? No information is there. So this is making sure that we are doing everything possible to fail Scrum, right? These are the strategic impact of this. So some of the antidotes that I have recommended are get senior management to commit Agile. And this is one of the things like, the chief agility officer role comes into play. Not just coaching alone, but, a little bit more than team coaching. Embrace culture, agility culture across the organization. Scrum Master is a voice of the actual process, the team Scrum process for the entire organization, not just the team. But when that is not happening, we need to have, a more pronounced role like a chief agility officer. Continuous learning has to be constantly in place rather than this fear of failure mentality. If customers are important, spend time for getting a dedicated product owner. Similarly, if employees or team members are important, get a coach, right? And enhance transparency to product backlog. These are all some of the strategies that I have for combating this problem. There are antidotes. Of these things that I mentioned, what are things that are resonating with you? Just 1 or 2 minutes.
The second one.
The second one, extending sprint length. Why do you say that?
Yeah, in my climb, do I say fortunately, unfortunately, some people don't understand Scrum as it should be. Now you have a 2-week sprint. For some reasons, stuff happened, and instead of ending the sprint, reprioritizing it, and starting the new sprint, they say let's extend the sprint by 3 days. So when you come from the angle of this is not maybe the best way or to approach it and all that, you get some pushbacks, maybe because they are very senior people and they don't want their authority in quotes to be challenged. So I see that happen a few times, yeah.
Very good, very good. Thanks, Alberto, for sharing that. And I just saw Peter put a chief agility officer job description. maybe a good time for you to engage with him on how culture can be accommodated over here so that management can be challenged. Okay, that's good. That's good. So let me move on to the next one, and we'll have some time towards the end for additional discussions as well. So planning / organization, we always say start with an end in mind and things like that. But how are we organizing ourselves to actually do the work? And what are we doing as part of our planning? Okay, these are some things that we need to focus on next in our process. And it becomes a product owner show. In other words, the product owner acts like a command and control person, like, it's my product and my say or a highway. It doesn't work that way, because the product owner is now acting more like a resource manager. I need you to do this, I need you to do that, forget about this, don't worry about. So there's no team buying, nobody is getting the team to see how we are doing this, because at the end of the day, it's all about how the team comes together to collaborate on what the value is. The product owner is accountable owner for the product, no questions, absolutely no disagreement on that. But we need to make sure that the product owner is not acting like a command and control person. If that quid pro quo kind of a mentality continues, then we have a transactional mindset and not a transformational mindset. And I've even seen some product owners come and say, well, I am not trying to share this product backlog to everyone in my team because it's above their pay grade. Oh, wait a minute. Scrum doesn't recognize hierarchies. Yes, we all work with the hierarchies and things like that, your compensation, your bonus, and your promotion. I understand all those things from a human resource standpoint, but when it comes to Scrum, where everyone is working together to deliver a value here, what we are trying to do should be known. The product roadmap, the release plan, the iterations, to the extent that should be known to the other people, so that they are able to come and say, I am spotting a risk here for this issue, or we should look at a spike for a technical challenge, or whatever it is that we are doing. If everything is so closed chest approach, then how can the team actually succeed? And this kind of a person will take the stand that if things fail, it's because the team didn't do it. If things succeed, it's because I'm the superpower. It doesn't work that way. It's not a product owner show. It's a team, collective, collaborative work, right? That's one way this manifests. The next one is we are expecting, or the coach himself or herself is acting like a project manager. They are asked to create a task. It becomes a micro focus. What's happening here? Coach should be a facilitator and not to be a scribe. We don't create, in the iteration planning or sprint planning session, what we are trying to do is split the whole thing into two, where the first part of the session focuses on what the stories that we are going to deliver, and the second part of it is focusing on how are the things we will be doing, what tasks will be done in the team. And the product owner or Scrum Master is not coming and creating all the tasks unless there is one particular story or two particular stories that the Scrum Master himself acts as a team member of the delivery team to say, okay, I will handle this for that particular one. But it's not like a project management world where somebody has to assign a task for you to pick it up. Oh, I didn't begin my work because the project manager didn't assign the task. That kind of a mindset doesn't work over here because it's commitment driven, right? So the coach should get the team to become self-organized. When these things are happening, the coach should not be doing the work, instead should technically coach on how the team should be self-organized. That's the one they are trying to be productive. But if you do end up creating the tasks yourself, you are enabling the team to fail, which goes into how the team will continuously failing Scrum, right? Coach should harness the power of the team to collaborate value. How you are going to work together. So even when conflicts come, when problem solving has to be done in a particular fashion, how you are actually using the power of the team. Instead, don't worry about it. I'm your problem solver. I will remove all the impediments. I'll do it all by myself. And if you're going to become such an individual contributor where you do all the work for the team, first of all, gets demotivated because you are acting as the final savior. And second, you are not teaching them the life skills to continue to sustain. Okay, what's the impact of these things on Scrum? You are again setting it for failure because PO does not uphold the empirical pillars. And what are the empirical pillars? The transparency, inspection, and adaptation. You're not upholding them. As a result, people are not actually able to contribute to better your products repeatedly. And then who is going to be losing as a result of that? It's you, product owner. Because product is your responsibility, you are accountable for the ultimate outcomes, and you are not helping the team to provide the input that you need to survive. Then Scrum Master is acting like a project manager. The team is also on learning wheels on self-organization. They are expecting other people to do the job for them. And it's okay at the early stages. This is when you basically tell the people that, okay, this is how you do it. When your child is beginning to crawl or stand up for the very first time, I'm sure this child is going to fall many times. But you don't immediately pick this child and start, okay, this is how you walk. They let the person fall repeatedly because they need to learn to stand up, they need to learn to balance, and they need to take the next step and move on. And if you start removing that butterfly to come out of the cocoon, you are not going to let the butterfly succeed. Right? You have to help them. It's much better to fail in those early stages of the product discovery where you are trying to gather all these skill sets rather than towards the later stages. Right? Some antidotes over here. Avoid I know what to build syndrome. This is particularly for the product owner and some of those members who hold everything to the heart rather than harness the power of the team to gather information. Let the team contribute to the product backlog. This is not like your chest that nobody should actually, provide any contributions to. Let them review, let them provide the feedback. This is how refinement happens. Refinement is not a one-person activity. Promote product discovery. Let the people actually experiment the product as a result of what you are trying to do. Go and talk to other people. Let other stakeholders weigh in on what you are doing and what you are not doing. And make sure that you are investing in a coach. And when I mean investing in a coach, true, coaching foundations. And not just go take a Scrum Master class online for a couple of hours and now you know everything about coaching. That's not what coaching is. A lot of people actually spend several hours and days and months to actually become a coach. And make sure that self-organization is promoted. The birds, how they fly repeatedly. Nobody tells them how to fly, but they all make sure that no one is getting hit or hurt. Right? Promote self-organization. And when these things are happening slowly and steadily, things will start settling in places. Among these things that I mentioned, what is resonating with you more?
So I'll jump in.
Sure.
Where I've had the biggest challenges with the product owner, because the product owner is providing leadership from the team, and if the product owner isn't there, or if the product owner is providing too much leadership, or if the product owner is too aggressive in their style, that can the team cowers in their feet. So how the product owner leads the team, I believe, has a huge impact in how effective the team is.
Absolutely agree. I couldn't disagree with you more. Yep. Because the product owner is setting the direction for the entire product, and the team should actually govern their charter to deliver on the journey. And if the product owner is controlling every little movement of them, the microscopic organization, then the team is not going to deliver. Absolutely.
We are kind of facing this as of now, where PO is directly approaching a team member to say, okay, this work can be done by this person only, and there's no transparency in the team what other person is doing. So the PBIs are not coming via the team and through the board and then refinement. It's just going directly to the person. He's doing it and reverting back to the PO. So it's kind of spoiling the overall culture, which you.
The overall culture. Yep.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yep. Overall culture and the cadence. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad these are, resonating with you. It's been wonderful. So let's move on. In the interest of time, let's move on. Get the thing here. So let's look at the team level here. Okay. So we talked earlier about, the team agreements, and in the latest Scrum guide, we still only call reference to commitments. We don't call working agreements. And Peter has talked about this several times before. And I believe also mentioned this today at the very beginning when he was giving you the map of the essence of Scrum, the way Scrum Ambassadors operates. So we talk about that working agreement, and that working agreement is very important for us to totally understand how the team works. To me, team stands for together, everyone achieves more, and we have to put efforts for every one of those together, everyone achieves more. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the way it manifests. This is not my forte. It's like people are still operating in their functional silos. Like, oh, you know what? I have more tenure than, John or Mary or, whoever the person is, but I don't need to stand up, come for this daily stand up. This is not like the benefit you get because of your tenure for, the parking lot closer to the office. This is not that. This is you being present for the team. And the next one is, this is a testing sprint. And this is one of the impediments that I already mentioned, like, okay, this is a design sprint, this is a testing sprint, so I don't need to be present because it's a waste of my time. The only developers are talking about it. I don't need to be present. Again, not a good one. Third one, the work committed is too much. This is another biggest thing because, at the time of iteration planning, all of you have equal say. The team members have equal say in saying like, I will commit to this, I will not commit to this. And many times what happens is people do this mathematics. And good thing about Excel is that you can do mathematics. The bad thing about Excel is you can do mathematics. You put all these, okay, I have 10 members in the team, I have, 100 points delivered, so 100 divided by 10, and on average from all the 3 sprints, I have to have 10 points worth of value coming out of every resource to justify that I can do Scrum. So people just keep adding more and more and more and more and more. And at the end of the day, I have 100 points that I have to deliver in the sprint, and the team members are walking out telling like, I know this isn't going to work. Then why did we commit? Oh, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to speak against the Scrum Master. But it's already committed. The best way I can actually show that this is going to not work is not show up and not contribute. The next one is lack of commitment. How does that manifest? Then people get, too nitty-gritty on the terms. Oh, this is not what I meant. This is what I meant. This is how I meant, and things like that. The first thing is, oh, we are agile. Let's use agile for our rescue. We have to always, embrace change even at the late stage. So we can always catch up on the next sprint. The next one is no meetings other than daily stand-ups is really required. As a result, I could not do anything. Let's use that for our excuse, right? Third one, that story is not part of my commitment. I'm only working on this. I don't need to worry about that. I may have some input into it, but I'm not going to contribute anything. It's team commitment. It's not like I have to deliver this story, you have to deliver that story. We're not going into our own individual silos and cubes and work on our own and come back together. All of this have to merge together. At the end of the day, it's working as a team. So which part of the individuals and interactions are we not necessarily paying attention to here? Right? So this is another major problem. And better yet, these people will come back and say, oh, I developed something, but I had to help somebody else because that person was suffering. As a result, I could not finish this. Can I get some partial credit? Right? So let's take a look at this impact on Scrum, how we are setting it to fail. First, functional silos. I'm a QA member. I cannot contribute anything with the development. Well, we have test-driven development. You have to contribute. Well, the build is not ready, so I cannot write my test case. Test cases are against the requirements, not against the build. The test requirements or the user stories are already available at the time that you committed in the iteration planning. Why can't you write your acceptance test scenarios for that? So this is all like silos. Now you are getting minutiae about like, I don't want to do these things. The next one is waiting for the next stand-up to escalate issue. I know I have a problem. At 10 o'clock in the morning, I know I have a problem. Oh, but our meeting, daily stand-up is at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Well, I already missed my time slot, so I'll have to wait for the next 9 o'clock meeting tomorrow. Who said you can go and talk to the other person, give a call, text, email, whatever it is, walk over, in today's virtual world, use any of the virtual team collaboration mechanisms to connect. You don't need to wait for tomorrow because if you waited, you have just created waiting time, which is a waste. Right? The next one is splitting points for partial delivery. I helped the team member. As a result, I couldn't finish my work. So instead of the 13 points, can I get 8 points? No. It's done or not done. Which part of the definition of done are we not in sync with as part of our working agreement? And so we need to understand these challenges repeatedly. If these things are happening at the team level, it's an opportunity for coaching, right? So some of the antidotes: focus on forming cross-functional team, bring people together. We have already talked about these T-shaped skills and pie-shaped skills and M-shaped skills and things like that. Expand the knowledge, share your findings so that you are able to work together. Address resistance for, Agile being properly embraced. Don't bring tenure, my experience in the company, I am this title. Don't bring all these things, because once you are part of the team, you are just a team member. Doesn't matter whether you are a vice president of the company or just a developer, doesn't matter. Train team on Agile practices. Understand what the Agile practices are. It's not reading from a simple book. Yes, those 4 manifesto principles are very good and the 12 principles are very easy to understand and things like that. But it's power-packed. It's power-packed. You need to totally understand how these Agile practices work. And avoid frequent member movements. Don't move this person. Oh, I will have to loan this person to other department. I have to loan this person to another one. Yes, we understand, in the part of the business, you may have to move a little bit here and there for various reasons. But too many member movements means the context which is lost and the connectivity to the actual problem being solved for the members is lost. So try to embrace these challenges correctly. So among these things, what is having a home signal with you? What is resonating more with you among these 3 things?
For my team, I would definitely say the second one, waiting for the next stand-up to escalate issues. That's definitely something that I see a lot with my team, and just continuously reminding them, like, let's not lose the time, bring it, escalate it when it actually happens and not waiting until the next stand-up. But that's something that I continue to try to enforce with my team.
Excellent, excellent. That's one thing, time cannot be wasted, right? My
Right.
previous manager, one of my previous manager told that has always stuck with me is, the most precious resource that you will never get back is time. Because time once lost is lost. You can never, money, you can make it up, many other ways, but time once gone is gone. You are never going to get October 9th, 3 o'clock, your time again ever, right? So we really have to make sure that we are not wasting time. And when we already say 2 weeks and we have limited amount of people working on this, a number of people times hours in the 2 weeks, it's already a small amount of time. So you cannot waste that time. Every minute adds over there. One thing that I always tell in my leadership role is don't count the days. Instead, make the days count. Right? So this is very important for us to come to terms with. Please, someone raise the, Peter, you raised the hand?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one of my favorite Scrum Master questions. How can we get this problem solved today? Okay, how can we get this problem fixed today? Because I've seen this happen, where someone brings something up and say, oh, we need to fix this. Okay, let's set up a meeting on Thursday to fix it. And then they set up a meeting and they say, oh, we need to fix this. And they set up another meeting to set up a meeting, and they can keep banging the problem on for weeks when, they could have just fixed it. And the actual time to fix it was probably 2 hours. But, somehow, I don't know if they were looking for permission or they were looking for blessing or they were looking for, I don't know, but there was just something missing there, and as a Scrum Master, I would be saying, how can we get this problem fixed today? How can we get this off of the table so that it's done? Okay. And this is where this whole tangible value sooner stuff comes is there's a lot of stuff. It's very easy to kind of push things along and not solve them. But if you got that focus on how do we get it done today, I don't know, I think that's what we're trying to, the part of the mentality that we're trying to instill, and I think by asking the question, you get people thinking about the problem, and actually engaging with it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree with Peter's thought process here. But what he was also actually doing over here is not necessarily solving it for the team, but actually putting a powerful question, which is a coaching moment. Which is like, I'm not going to solve the problem for you, but I need this problem solved. So how can you solve the problem? And the keyword is today. Not tomorrow, not the day after, not 5 days from now, but today. Right? It's very important for us to actually use that coaching moment over here. Okay? So let's move on to the last step in the game here, process, unlearn to relearn, unlearn and relearn. I always mention this, like, whatever you know, there is always more for you to learn. Even, read between the sentences, read, between words and read between characters and things like that. So you have to, but at the same time, you have to understand the non-negotiable and still continue to focus on the learning mindset, right? So how do you do that? One thing that I find is reviews are closed. When I mean reviews are closed, it's only the small Scrum team that gets to actually do the review, and it's not open for business stakeholders. Other members of the organization are not coming in. And the product that we all recognize that the product is for larger than the team that is actually delivering on the product, right? And so how can you ignore all the other members as part of your feedback generation process? So the business stakeholders should be present. And if we talked about the previous symptoms that we mentioned, like no dedicated product owner or one person doing the same roles multiple times, then you are losing the focus over here because that person is not setting up the reviews to be successful. The next one is the reviews become a surprising thing for the product owner. Well, the product owner should have been available more often throughout the entire the sprint cycle, right? And so when a team is really done, they don't need to wait for the review, just like what we were telling, like we don't need to wait for the next daily stand-up to bring up the issues. When the work is done and I want to get feedback, like this is how I have done, can I get the feedback? Going back to the essence of Scrum, the sooner feedback should come. The tangible result, the feedback on that should come faster. So I should be able to go to the product owner and say, well, I haven't done with this. Just, according to the acceptance criteria, this is all met. What do you think? That has to be, done a lot sooner. Instead, the product owner is not available, or the product owner comes, coolly on the day before the review some things and not everything, and then comes to the review session and say, oh, really? That's not what I meant. Maybe you misunderstood my acceptance criteria. Throughout the sprint, what were you doing? Where were your availability for the team? Reviews. The third point is reviews show only selected person's work. If 5 people are actually working together to deliver the thing, make sure that everybody gets the time to highlight their work done. This is not like a demo, but highlight what has been completed. But instead, I pick and choose. This sprint, I would like to make sure that Mary demonstrates the work. Next sprint, I want the Manasi to demonstrate the work. I don't want to do that. I want everybody to do the work. Right? So you have to actually start thinking, this is the moment for people to highlight their work. It may be a simple Christmas carol that the person is singing, the child is singing on the stage. But you need to be there to appreciate that. If I cherry pick what that person has to sing, or which person I should actually give appreciation to, then I'm actually failing, demotivating the team. And pretty soon that will have a telling on you. Other one, retrospectives become optional. This is another biggest pet peeve that I have for me. Okay, this is like learning fails. Because you basically come back and say, I don't have any time for complaining, so we're not going to do the retrospective. Who said retrospective is a complaining session? We're not focusing on the people here. We are only focusing on what worked, what process worked, what process can be better, and things like that, right? What's not working and what's failing and how it can be better. That's the focus over here. It's not complaining. If people are complaining, then it's a team-related problem that we have to go and coach and address. And we can't come back and say, as a result of that, I'm not going to have retrospective at all. And other things I found out, like nothing ever changes. Why even have a retrospective? Because it doesn't matter. It's like, somebody writes in an Excel or in a tool what happened, and that is the end of it. If there is a good viable process improvement that needs to be done, immediately that needs to get into the following sprint, potentially. Instead, we document it. It becomes more like a documentation session just to say, oh, we put a check mark next to it. But nothing comes out of it. So people lose the motivation of having anything. As a result, they don't come with the mindset of improving things. Right. The third one is, we do it when we need it. And I believe I was talking to somebody, even in the Scrum ambassador meetings in the last few sessions. One of them basically said, I didn't realize the fact that we should do sprint retrospective at the end of every sprint. I thought we can cherry pick. No. We only have 4 important events: the sprint planning, the daily stand-up, the review, and retrospective. We don't have 50 million things, and we don't want to make everything optional here. These 4 things need to happen. When these things are not happening, the impact is going to be reviews do not have the appropriate stakeholders for good feedback, which means your product backlog refinement is not happening. Feedback is not there. As a result, you are not delivering the value for the customers. Retrospectives are becoming optional sessions, which means the opportunity to learn is failed. And if this continues forever, learning stops. Now, that's when you can forget about Scrum, or you can forget about any project delivery methodology at the point. If learning is not happening, there's no point. Right? What are some of the antidotes? Enhance process discipline. If it means people are complaining, talk to them in private and say, well, this is not the way to, raise problems. Focus on the problem, not on the person. Resist the urge for task orientation. I need to put a check mark next to it. Let's move forward. Don't talk. Okay, see, I heard you. No problem. Let's move on. Don't do that. Enhance the stakeholders to commit. Sometimes even when you go and ask the stakeholders to come, they say, oh, I'm too busy. I can't come. Let them know what the impact is going to be. The opportunity for you to provide the right amount of feedback is getting lost. If you require my feedback on your 360-degree feedback and I don't give it to you on time, don't you impact it? Learning should not be sidelined. It cannot be considered as a wasteful activity. As a result of that, maybe more coaching is required, maybe more training is needed, maybe individual training or group training is required, maybe additional tools and technologies have to be invested in. I don't know what those things are, but learning has to come back. We can no longer go back and say, what's the point in doing this, because nothing ever changes in this company ever. Among these things that I mentioned for the last post, which one resonates with you more?
Again, it's for me, it's the reviews thing because we don't have any stakeholders present. So most of the time it's without any inspect and adapt. We just have to do whatever work has been given. It's
I couldn't hear you fully. Can you repeat that point, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear now.
Yeah, for me, it's we don't have stakeholders in the reviews. I mean, it's been almost 1.5 years that we never get a stakeholder. Most of the work we have been doing is most of the compliance thing. So it's pretty straight that what we need to do. There's nothing where they stakeholders decide what they, and also they think that what they have told in the right at the start, that's what they need not to review at all. So the stakeholders in our case, the banks are not interested in spending any time here.
And why do you think that's happening? Is it because in your particular case, not in a generic sense, in this particular case, is it because they are invited or not invited?
Oh, we have been inviting them, but they never they never turn up. And most of the time, it's for us, it's the organization is like, we have this 7 banks in Denmark who are the owner, and we serve them only. So they are owner of our organization called Bank Data, which is takes care of IT for all the 7 banks. So most of the time, the banks say, okay, what we have told you in the right at the front, that's what we want. We need not to see what you are doing, because maximum thing is the compliance thing. So whenever Euro government bank, there is a compliance requirement from Euro, they have to just follow it. So whatever their interpretation is, they change interpretation in the, if they change interpretation, they just tell us, right, just communicate to the PO, but they never come in the stakeholder review meetings to see the working software.
See the working software. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. Good. All right. So I'm bringing to the summary section over here. And if you look here, I said, we failed Scrum. I didn't say Scrum is failing. We failed Scrum when we don't understand who our customer is, or don't take proper steps to understand our customers. And then we move into all these 4 different dimensions that we talked about: strategic session, planning session, team session, and the process session. And these are some of the ways these failure manifests. But you truly have to understand what is happening, ask some powerful questions, engage in appropriate coaching moment, maybe even challenge the executive team and culture, and probably get yourself trained and coached on other areas so that you can set yourself for success in this process. With that, I bring to a conclusion over here. Are there any other thoughts anyone has, Peter, or if you have any other thoughts to conclude our session, that would be good.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for sharing this very extensive analysis of what can go wrong in a Scrum project. For me, what I really liked is what you touched on at the end was this notion of powerful questions. A concept which I've discovered recently is curiosity. And curiosity is kind of this intrinsic desire to learn new things, and really kind of the best way to experience it is to watch a small child exploring a new space, or even your cats exploring a new space. They want to understand every single square inch of that new space, but they don't necessarily have a conception of what they're going to find. And so, when you're asking questions, it's like exploring the space. So you ask questions to understand it, but you don't have judgment, or you don't have an agenda. And it turns out when you ask questions like that and listen carefully to the answers, really great things happen, and people will open up and they'll talk to you. And this is really powerful when you can get your stakeholders to do that. Okay, and you start having real conversations about what the problems are and what you need to do. And I think that's really the ultimate solution to how do you fix your dysfunctional Scrum? Is to start discovering what the issues are and ask questions and let the answers fall where they may, but try to create this context where people are willing to share their answers. And I found that to be the most powerful part. So that's my 2 cents to the process.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot,
Yes.
Peter. Thank you.
So
Anybody
I'm gonna
Yeah, go ahead.
well, maybe we go once around the room and see what people's kind of summary is or aha moments for the day or for your talk. How would that be?
Sure.
Okay, so I will kind of go around the room. Raj, you've been really active on the chat. So what have your aha moments been coming out of this talk? If you'd like to unmute yourself, I don't know if you can unmute yourself, but if you could, that would be really awesome. Well, maybe not. Okay, let's try someone else. Alex, are you there? Would you like to share? What were your high points or aha moments coming out of the talk tonight? Okay, Raj is written in the chat. My aha moment is that we fail for we don't practice. Okay, she's mentioned that multiple times. She's mentioned that in different words. You just put that into the chat.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, if your microphone is not working, you can probably use the chat to chat a moment or so.
Yeah. Okay, Alberto, let's try one more time. And if we get silence 3 times, we'll say, I guess this is a sign that it's time to move on. Alberto, would you like to share anything with us tonight? And I've always thought, Nigeria is kind of a hotbed of, like Sri Lanka was one, Nigeria is another, where there's so much going on down there. So what were your aha moments, Alberto? Okay, and I think we're discovering it's people's bedtime. So I think the time has come to say goodnight. Thank you so much, Sriram. This is I was taking very intensive notes. All of a sudden, people are awake and alive. This is cool.
Yeah, so sorry, we're sorry. I did have the aha for the 4 zones, the way he kind of captured it, where you have process, strategy, planning, team, and the way he went through the slides and the way he presented it was really awesome for me. And I'm really going to be digesting it a lot more later. Thank you so very much.
Okay, awesome. Would anyone else like to share something? Nikki, you're unmuted. Would you like to share something?
Yes. Firstly, thank you for the feedback you guys gave me earlier. It's I've got good understanding now. Also, my takeaway from this is I really need to get the higher powers in the company converted to agility because they're not following it. So thank you very much for reinforcing that in my mind. And there was a couple of things that did resonate where product owners don't attend ceremonies. It's frustrating. We need to work on a way on getting them to join in because they need to realize that they are also part of the process.
Yes.
Thank
Fantastic.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Peter, I'll pass the talking stick back to you for our closure.
Okay, well, I'm just going to say once again, thank you very much, especially for those of you who are coming late in the evening or early in the morning and stayed all the way to the end because this is a global event, and I know even for me, and it's not that late for me, staying fully energized has been a challenge, just because it's requires so much energy to stay focused on the talks throughout the course of the day. So I'm going to say thank you to everyone, and I hope you'll follow us and connect with us either personally or through the Scrum Ambassadors, and look forward to hearing from you in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
everyone.
you.